part is, this is a new chapter. There's a lot of vocabulary and information in this. Also, the best thing you can do is honestly just learn how to do this via calculator and not worry so much about the math. And there's extra practice problems on the bit of the next page, but I would be just more concerned about understanding how to do the calculator than finding the other information, okay? So let's start reading it to you. So 9.1, graphing quadratic functions. First thing, a quadratic function is a nonlinear function with a degree of 2, we've already learned that, and is written in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That form is called standard form, that equation right there, okay? You've seen it before when we factored and did all that stuff. Next, the shape of a quadratic is called a parabola. It looks like a U shape, okay? It looks like a smiley face. It is facing up when a is greater than 1 and is facing down when a is less than 1. Next, the axis of symmetry. This is a line, it's a vertical dashed line that can fold a parabola completely in half. Like if we took a piece of paper and folded it, it would completely fold in half and make a symmetric, even shape, okay? Next one, the vertex. A vertex is the highest or lowest point of a graph where the axis of symmetry intersects the parabola, okay? So the axis of symmetry runs straight up and down. It's going to run into the parabola. That intersection is where your vertex is every time. Another one you should already know, a y-intercept. A y-intercept is where your graph, whatever your function is, crosses the y-axis. Another one, a minimum point. A minimum point is found from your vertex. It happens when a is greater than 1 and your shape is facing up. So it looks like a smiley face. This is kind of reverse what you think. A maximum is a highest point. You can never have both. You can only have a max or a min. It is found when a is less than 1 or it's negative, okay? And it is facing down like this, like a frowny face. Zeros, we've talked about these before. Zeros are also called roots, which are also called x-intercepts. We've done that before. It's right where it crosses the x-axis. For a quadratic function, the domain is always all real numbers. It goes all the way to the left forever and all the way to the right forever. So that's called all real numbers, or double bar R as we call it. The range is determined based on the min or the max. So if it has a minimum, y is greater than or equal to the minimum, or if it has a maximum, it's y is less than or equal to maximum. So it depends if it's facing up. If it's facing down, I mean, it's starting at that point and going down forever. If it's facing up, starting at that point and going up forever. So it just depends on what the picture looks like. Key formulas and concepts we need to know. Make sure you can see it. Yep, okay. Standard form, we already have that. The axis symmetry, there's a formula for it, but again, this is a formula, x equals negative b over 2 times a. You're getting b and a from the equation. Again, you can use your graphing calculator. Your vertex, you use the axis symmetry to find your x. You find y by taking that answer and plugging it in. Again, we'll use our graphing calculator. Your y-intercept is 0, c, again, from standard form. And we're going to learn how to make the table and identify a, b, and c. Again, just use the graphing calculator. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use the graphing calculator. I'm not too worried about finding the numbers this way. I would rather you just be able to find it this way, which means if you can't do it on the graphing calculator, you're kind of out of luck. Okay, so we take this, make sure you can see. Okay, turn this on, that might help. I got a lot going on. Okay, so clear anything if you have any there. The equation I have is 3x squared, I have to look, plus 6, quit. Type in the wrong things. 6x minus 4. So 3x squared plus 6x minus 4, okay? So if we wanted to look at this graph, remember we push y equals to type that in. Then you look at the graph. Okay, oh, pretty parabola, okay? Now, if you wanted to find the axis symmetry, you just find the vertex. To find the vertex, you look and you say, does this have a minimum point or a maximum point? Because the minimum or the max is the same thing as your vertex. They're in the same spot. So you go, that has a low point. So you push second trace, that's your best friend. And you're gonna look for minimum. You're gonna go down to minimum. And push enter. Now it says left bound. So when you're looking at the minimum, what's the left of it? Well, it's to the left side. So you need to have your cursor on the left of it. It needs to be flashing on the left side. You see mine? I push enter. Then I scoot over and be on the right of it. Just make sure I'm on the right. It doesn't matter how far, just on the right. Push enter twice. And it'll tell me my minimum is at -1. It's really, it says -1.000. It's really -1. -1, comma, -7. And look, I have that written down. So I would write down my vertex is at -1, -7. My axis symmetry is whatever my x value is. So then I would write my axis symmetry is x equals -1. Okay? Now my y-intercept. If I wanted to find my y-intercept, I would push second, trace, value. At a y-intercept, think about it. What is x always? The y-axis, x is always 0. So you type in 0, and it'll give you x is 0, y is -4. Look, that's the ordered pair for your y-intercept, 0, -4. Okay, so second trace is your friend. What else? The axis symmetry is drawn with a dashed line, and then you just sketch this. So I draw my vertex right there. I put my axis symmetry all the way up and down. I put my y-intercept, and then you use the table. And I just pick an even point. So I find my vertex, and I pick 1 point above and 1 point below, and I just write the little table down right there so I can graph the point on paper. Because if it asks you to graph it on paper, you're going to have to graph it on paper. And if you're doing it on Alex, take a quiz, look at this, and then just use those points. Just make sure you pick one on each side of the vertex. So I always just find my vertex and pick one above and one below and plot the 2 points so it can make a U. Zeros, if you look at the graph, you say, oh, it has 2 zeros. If it asks you for specific zeros, which I don't think it does until the next section, you just push second, trace, 0. Okay, but you really don't do it until next section. Okay. The domain is always all real numbers. The range, whatever your y value is in your minimum. So my y value is -7, and since it has a minimum, its y is greater than or equal to -7. And that's it. Every single time with every single problem you do that. Every single time. You say if you have a max or a min, you write that information down. You copy the table to the page. So you can look at this and watch me do it over and over again. I have a couple extra problems here. And I have a couple extra problems up here in purple. Just use these problems. It doesn't matter which ones you use. The important part is, do you know the steps on the calculator? And you can make a note card that has just calculator information on it, and you can keep it like in the lid of your note, like in your thing right here, so you always have that information. Eventually, you'll do it so much you have it memorized, but for now, don't be stressed out about not remembering what the buttons are. Second trace is always your friend, and if your graph is crazy, like if it's real thick and something's wrong, you always push zoom 6, and it'll always make it a 10 by 10 again if your graph is messed up in some way or another, okay? Try it out. There's some problems right here for you to look at and try, okay? And just see how it goes.